好，在座所有的贵宾，在座所有的朋友，大家好。那我是曾子峰，非常感谢大家今天来参加这样一个活动。我们在这个全台湾，不止全台湾，全世界大概最充满能量的一个剧场。它不只是一个硬体的剧场，它是一个城市的剧场，跟所有的朋友来共同讨论，就是我们所钟爱的高雄的这个发展。那今天这个主题其实很清楚的揭露了，这个剧场当然给高雄一个机会，可是最关键的其实是跟这个剧场发展过程里面息息相关的公民，公民在这里面扮演最关键的角色。那我们的这次的活动一直是扣着这样的一个主题，我们希望这个剧场它不是只是一个丰功伟业的一个政治的一个工程，它其实是一个市民运动在这里面所呈现的精神。可是呢，我们要看的是，那这样的一个力量如何在这个剧场完成以后，它真正成为高雄市的发展的真正的动力。那今天呢，我们非常高兴请到 Michael 到台湾来。那我2点来跟各位做一个说明。第一个呢，为什么谈了这么多年鲁尔，那我们还在谈鲁尔？其实很简单，因为鲁尔真的是从国际角度来看，那个是一个典范的变动。刚才呢，副院长已经用他的角度跟各位诠释，看见未来，然后他们如何用在那个时候就扎根2%的这种人才概念、2%的能量概念去启动一个城市的改变。可是呢，我要用我自己常年追随这个鲁尔区的改造的这个经验呢，再跟各位再分享一件事情。鲁尔区的改造虽然有非常多的活动要角，可是真正改造鲁尔区的其实是人民。然后呢，整个这么长期30年的运动里面，他们有一句口号一直让我没有办法忘记 ：Change the people with the people。也就是呢，他们其实在整个过程里面，他们如何的去透过计划去改变老百姓，然后透过老百姓去改变这个城市。这个东西是他的最经典的部分。那今天的 Michael 呢，他有机会用最近身的经验来跟各位呢分享，如何在这里面，他们让老百姓在这里面重新动起来，然后让老百姓 change the people， 然后 with the people 这件事情，它成为一个城市的改造经典在这里的一个经验。Michael 我是非常羡慕他的，他在年轻的时候呢，他就因为他自己的独特的想法，他去参与了在1987年到鲁尔区。鲁尔区他从柏林到鲁尔区，那个是没有人要去的地方。鲁尔区那个时候是没有人要去的地方，他去了那里，因为那边有一批人在号召那个地方的改变。然后呢，他那个改变后来被证实是全世界的城市、都市以及社会改造的经典。他参与了那样子的一个改造全程，而且呢，他把那个全程的经验到现在还没有离开那个位置。他正好借在里面给让大家看到，就是在当时的那样的一个想法之下，他们如何在这里面透过老百姓改变老百姓，然后呢，这个改变了这个城市在这里面的一个重要的经验。我们是不是正式欢迎 Michael 来跟我们分享这个经验？谢谢。
我们是德国最大的城市，我们是个工业城，我们也拥有世界最大的内陆港，所以也是浑然天成的港口城。我们是文化之都，又是活力之城。也是名副其实的不夜城。抱歉了，纽约。我们的城市拥有各界精英，各具一片主场。我们还是个大学城，拥有29万名学生，还有供每一个人发挥的巨大空间。但这听起来像是一个城市吗？没错，我们汇集超过500万人口，超过15万家公司， 200种文化。我们不只是一个城市，而是53个城市。我们是个大都会圈，我们是众城之城，鲁尔大都会圈。
Okay, good morning, and thank you very much for this invitation. It's a great honor to come here, and this is the second time that I'm here in Kaohsiung, and Professor Zheng Zifeng invited me 10 years ago and showed me a lot around. And we had a possibility yesterday to walk along the harbor front, and indeed, 10 years is a lot of time. A lot of things have changed during this last 10 years. I also had a wonderful experience yesterday to get a backstage guided tour through this building. So my great respect for this wonderful combination of a theater, of an opera hall, of a recital hall, etc. So a great thing that happened. I will talk about the Ruhr. I will talk about our experience with the transformation, with the transition, and as Professor Zheng Zifeng started, it always had something to do with the people. So, thank you again. A very current event is just last December, when the coal production in Germany was finished. So in December, the last coal mine in Germany, after a long period of 200 years of coal mining, was finished, and the who of the nation, the who even of the Republic, and the who of the European Union was assembled there to get that. The last miner gave the last piece of coal that was produced to the President of Germany, and the last week the President of Germany put that piece of coal into his office in Berlin. Jean-Claude Juncker, the President of the EU Commission, also joined that event because a lot of the cooperation of the member states of the European Union started with agreement about steel and coal after the Second World War. So the story of the coal mining and the process of transformation is human, and it's a historic European decade. So very traditional. It's the miners who are singing in their suits for the end of the coal mining. And the age of coal is, and has been, and still is, an age with millions of people who've been actively or directly or indirectly as family members, etc., involved in this industrial period. This final event was held over in Zollverein. Zollverein was a coal mine. It was closed in 1987 and is being a World Heritage listed monument today. So it was unbelievable 30 years ago that a coal mine could be a listed member, a listed monument in the UNESCO World Heritage. We're interacting on that project with the people. We are declaring what is that, and sometimes you need models. Sometimes you need robust models to show up what is Zollverein, what has it been. So on the site you will find these robust metals, models about the whole complex of Zollverein, and you will see that our kids are really actively using this and understanding what a coal mine yesterday was. So it's all about information, and we have to serve the information to our people and vice versa. So we learn from the interaction of the people. So I will give you some information today about what's going on in the Ruhr. To bring you where is it, where am I coming from? It's part of Europe. It is part of the Federal Republic of Germany. It's called federal because we have the so-called Lande, the regional states, and so the Ruhr is laid in North Rhine-Westphalia, one of our regional states. And it is the single cities, and they're all part of Europe, and we express and we feel as Europeans. So in the heart of Europe is the headline on the main station of the city of Essen. We are a group of cities We are assembled along 4 rivers. It's the River Lippe, the River Emscher, the River Ruhr. We're going together to the big River Rhine. And what you can see, it is a metropolitan area. It is an agglomeration of cities. It's an agglomeration of built urban areas. And we all together count 53 cities, 4 districts, 4 counties, and 5.1 million inhabitants. For Germany, 5 million is quite big. I know that in other metropolitan contexts, 5 million is more medium or even small. We're using the phrase metropolitan Ruhr for the quality. We want to develop up to the qualities of metropolitan areas, not so much on quantities. We are a group of independent cities, and that means that each of these cities has an own mayor, an own county hall, city hall, an own county hall, etc. So cooperating means to bring together independent bodies, a group of mayors, a group of county directors, etc. The population was rising up with the industry, and what you can see when the industry was declining, the population get a standard around about 5 million. It is not at the same condition in every place. It is a concert center and built-up urban center, so we have different density of population, we have different density of problems, etc. Very banal, but it's not a homogeneous region. It's a region with differences. So let's look about our long-term experience in this field of transition. First of all, there are 2 legs that our economy was based on. That was coal industry and steel industry. So we were these old manufacturing industries, and we had to go through a change. And we started with coal crisis and even with steel crisis in the 1950s and the 1960s. So we experienced a long period of something has to be changed. And we were not very good. We were learning by doing. We were learning by making mistakes. So it's not a homogeneous story of going towards a better future. It is zigzag. Yeah? It is not a direct line. It was curves or whatever you described. We had overcapacities in the coal industry. We didn't need so much anymore. We had these great changes in the technologies. We had a missing productivity on the economy, and we had the big companies dominating and the small and medium-sized enterprises missing. So if we think about the creativity, etc., from small and medium-sized companies, that was missing in the Ruhr. We had completely changing market conditions, and today the renewable energies and all the questions of climate change are not something that supports coal production. So what you can see here is the steady decline, a dramatic decline of coal industries here, shown with the employees, with the miners, etc. And as I mentioned with my first chart, in 2019, in December, it's closed, so we have no production anymore. The second beam is the same and comparable story around about steel. We had overcapacities, we had competing companies and a completely changing world market and world market prices, so that we could not go on with the kind of German steel production that we've been used for 200 years. And again, not to zero, but to a special low level. The employers in steel industries are just there left where we have very special products that fit to the world market because of the technologies. So what and where have we been going through? The cities went through this experience at the same time. The neighbor city made the same experience, the workers made the same experience, the company leaders, the company directors as well. So we went through the small ones as well as the big ones. And by the time we changed our attitude, we changed our strategic understanding, what is necessary. For a long while we were thinking, oh, better times will come back. We just have to wait, and then we will be strong and important again. But we had to learn, no, there's no going backwards. There's need to go forward. So what did we have to do? We had to restructure, and the economy did it by themselves. To restructure the big industries, we had to, and we had the great opportunity to create new universities in the 1960s. We had to clean our environment. It was dramatic, polluted, and we had to reduce the emissions. We had to reduce change completely our behavior with our environment. We had to support and develop new technologies. We had to diversify our economy. We had to support SMEs, and we had to offer new opportunities to the people to join this economic and social and society changing. And we had changed completely from production more than to developing of technologies. By the way, our politics changed. We learned even by experience, and there are three things that I want to highlight. It's more integrated strategies, more strategies that based on regional potentials, so to discover our regional specialties, and changing more in the sense of developing strategies with lead markets and with fields of competence. If you look on the figures, it's already 1982, 83 that blue collars were no more the main jobs, but that service-based, knowledge-based industries were relevant. So today it's very clear the third economic sector is dominating the economy of the Ruhr, and no more the blue-collar jobs, no more the standard manufacturing and old industries. So the change has, on the economic base, been successful. And if we look on our industries, we can see that we are making money, we are producing products, and we are fit for the competitions on the world market. If we look on a special field of knowledge and science, then we have changed from we had only two universities, one art school and one school for mining engineers. And for a long time, the German politics thought, Ruhrgebiet, universities? No, this is not necessary. They work in the factory, they work in the coal mine, they don't be highly educated, no. So a dramatic change. So now we have 38 universities and higher colleges. We have 274,000 students a year. So we're one of the biggest educators for higher educations in Germany. Even though in Germany nobody thinks we are a center of university, they still think we are the center of blue-collar jobs. So the image sometimes stays much longer than the reality. So we're very, very happy about this amount of students there. And we're also happy that quite a lot of public and private-based research institutes of the industry and of special fields are located in the Ruhr today. So we started to be more and more attractive for completely different things than 50 years ago. These universities now, since 10 years, are allied, are connected in the University Alliance Ruhr. This is not merging all them to be one big institution. This is cooperating by having a work share where I'm best in this university, where I'm best in that university, etc. So by working together, it is developing our competences and our fields. And this means that we are able to go in the direction of excellence in science and excellence in education and research. It also includes very banal things. So our students who are studying in Dortmund get the credit points as well in Duisburg. So it's even for the students quite handleable now to join one of these universities. So it's not only the high-end things that you have to do, it's also to do the practical, administrative things that are necessary to work out. Coming back to Zollverein, this shows you a map of the whole campus that is put into the World Heritage listed monument, and you see these colored areas. This mentioned two universities, one of the arts. It's the Folkwang University in Essen, and they said, let's have a campus, let's have a new building, new things on Zollverein. And what they erected there is Campus Zollverein, a new Folkwang University of the Arts. And since October 2017, we have not only millions of visitors on Zollverein, but we also have 500 students, 70 professors, and studying and offering photography, communication design, industrial design, and art and design services. So things on the place where heritage is now, instead of production, it starts to be production of brain, knowledge, and science. We, and you've seen this little video at the beginning, are promoting ourselves as a group of cities, maybe a city of cities. We is this group of local authorities, and we're going outbound with these informations. And the reason why you could see a Chinese video is not because I've made that for today, but because we're going on the Chinese market with marketing for the City of Cities and Ruhr. And you can find all about that in the internet, also in Chinese, so just use that opportunity. How did that happen, and when did that happen? Somebody mentioned the heroes of his education, of the development, etc. And we have heroes of transformation in the Ruhr. And one is Robert Schmidt. He was the planning director of the city of Essen. And he sat together with the other planning directors of the other cities, and they were discussing 2 years between 1910 and 1912, so more than 110 years ago. And they were discussing together, what should we do to get a healthy, well-being industrial area, which they called Rhein-Ruhr, between the river Rhine and the river Ruhr. And they came out with a plan, and Robert Schmidt highlighted it. We have to have a national park in between. We have to have the green between the factories, between the cities. And he said it's not located outside, at the edge. It has to be between the city and easily accessible for all. Easily accessible for all, 100 years ago, really meant walking, not driving. Normal people didn't have a car. There were no light railways, etc. So accessible for all. So when Robert Schmidt asked his colleagues to subscribe that, to make it, they said, oh no, sorry. This is a dream, etc. So he was really far ahead in his time to what was possible. We had a First World War, etc. So things were not followed in that way. But looking on these documents, it's very clear that he has great, great wisdom. The second hero I want to mention is Willy Brandt. He became chancellor, he became socialistics, international, he got a Nobel Prize for his peace things, etc. And when he was campaigning for getting a chancellor in Germany in 1961, he said, the sky above the Ruhr has to be blue again. And in 1961, nobody could think about this to get a reality. They thought, he is cuckoo. This candidate, you can't vote him, yeah? He's thinking and speaking about things that are impossible. And the blue sky was impossible in 61. There are followers like the regional minister-presidents of the region, of the state of North Rhine-Westphalia, like Heinz Kühn in 1968, who really developed a program and who started with public qualities, thinking we have not only to concentrate on production, mobility, we have to think about what kind of qualities do we get for tomorrow, do we get for our life. And he put a development program there with 4.8 million euro for investment in these new future. 10 years later, Johannes Rau, he was a follower, invested a program which was called Action Program Ruhr, investing again 3.5 million, and following this period of founding universities in the sense of developing universities, developing things, etc. And Johannes Rau started with, let's ask about integrated approaches. I'm mentioning these programs, which is because it's necessary to have such a political strategy combined with investment monies. If it's only talk, if it's only paper, it doesn't happen. But if you combine things like this, these are special programs for a special thing. The last hero I want to present to you is Professor Karl Ganser, who created and managed the international building exhibition IBA Emscher Park between 1989 and 1999. And he put out the things that have to be served, that have to be solved. And he had the idea we have to strengthen the weak elements of a chain. He was not supporting the running things and the weak things will follow. He said, no, we have to concentrate on where we are not good, where we are not things. So he said, the landscape is in a bad condition. We have to concentrate and to develop this, and it was the program Amscher Landscape Park. Our water qualities are in cruel conditions, and we completely have to turn around the water, and that is with the revitalization of the Amscher River. We should not only leave the brownfields laying out there. We had 5,000 hectare brownfields at the same time. 5,000 hectare brownfields at the same time is cruel for the market. It is a catastrophe. And he said, we should not just wait, but we can concentrate and reuse brownfields for a new urbanism. And he said, we have to have an urban development on human scale. Maybe high-rise buildings are fascinating, but mainly to make the city livable, it is on the human scale. The industrial heritage wording started in the 1990s. We had experts of buildings and trains and steam trains, and we were laughing about them. These cuckoo engines, lovers, etc. But heritage now came out to be really a strategic size. Integration of neighborhoods was we cannot only look on single projects. We have to think about the neighborhood as a quartier, as a part of the city, as a connected part of the cities. And the last field of activities was we have to have special offers for the people. We have to support people in joining this period of transformation. And he was very clear saying, these are the conditions. If we've solved these 7 fields of activities, then we may be successful in the market and the economic development. If we summarize all that in very short, he himself, Karl Ganser, wrote a big book at the end of this 10 years, and that was the front page, showing a steelwork, a blast furnace in Duisburg North, and saying it's a future workshop for the future with 17 cities. And if we look a little bit in detail, what is it? What was IBA Amscher Park? It was a small organization of 30 people. Small enough to handle. Small enough to keep it dense and keep it creative. It was constructed as a brilliant political network. It was a top-down impulse. It was a state agency, and it was collected and well connected with political and society and economy and unions, even though. It was a program that started with a strategic paper, and you can read this strategic paper even today. If you compare starting papers, very often you cannot read them later because they're promising things and they say blah 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 and the things are completely different afterwards, etc. The first memorandum was worked on 2 years. Karl Ganser worked 2 years with colleagues, experts, in discussing and finding out what could be the program in the sense of a strategy. And immediately during the IBA, during this 10 years, the paper was discussed and was rewritten. So we had a second memorandum, and at the end we had a last memorandum in the sense of what have we done, what have we produced during this 10 years. It was a written strategy number 1, number 2, and developing and reflecting. 99, after 10 years, it was a public event. It was the exhibition year, and this one exhibition year was also a festival of projects. What have been shown, what have been produced, etc. And if we look more in details, and I summarize something that can be called some lessons that we've learned, is that it was a laboratory. It invited people to do things different. It was inviting the cities, it was inviting the decision makers to get learning things done. The IBA was a great opera. It was not a duet of 2 flutes. It was not music school. It was really a production. So to repeat IBAs or to repeat things like that, you must think about a lot of conditions that you put together. from lighting, from the stairs, from the orchestra, from the soloists, from the audience, from the promoting, etc. So IBA was a great opera and very professionally managed. IBA was from the beginning on a great provocation. Think about the announcement, let's do it different next 10 years. And think about this announcement to somebody who's ruling. Sorry, you're wrong. Yeah, you have to do things different. This is not very common. If you ask 17 mayors, let's do it different, you're provoking 17 mayors saying you're doing not good enough, you're not, etc. So you have to stand a provocation like that to get things clear. IBA was a numerous numbers of innovations, and there's two things that are really great is the industrial landscapes to be relevant. We had the idea that only the nature, the outside of the cities is relevant and beauty. And in the city, sorry, it's city, it's not landscape, it's not urban nature, etc. That's only for the specialists. But coming back and saying our cities, inner cities, landscape are so relevant for our living, that was really the big push by the IBA, and industrial heritage to be our roots and not being just the rusty rest that we can throw away or get clean of this, etc. IBA was an invitation to cooperate. It was an integrated strategy in the sense that we invited artists, invited architects, invited engineers, invited commissioners, invited politicians, unionists, etc. to cooperate for a better future or better projects in that period of 10 years. IBA had a principle. We should not talk about things that we have not visited before. We should not make decisions on a big table in town hall without knowing what is outside. So in several meetings, Karl Ganser really made that provocation that he asked, who has been outside there? And if too much of them raised up their hand, I've heard about that. He said, okay, we meet again after you've been outside. Stopping the conference and meeting again a week later or 2 weeks later saying, okay, now everybody has been outside, now we have a feeling of what is knowing and the science. We also had a 10 years experience which was combined with this attitude in saying, let's travel through the Ruhr. We thought it's stupid to travel around the Ruhr. We know everything, why should we travel around the Ruhr? Huh? What is that? But then it means to collect several experience of several sites, not only this one where you're working on, or which is on your city, in your department, etc., but knowing also the problems of the neighbor city and the neighbor conditions of another site. So numerous numbers of site visits were there, and our politicians were used for 10 years that they have to walk out and go and see these sites underneath. It also was a period of visuals, seeing, visiting, contamination and decontamination. And the reason for that is it costs us millions to decontaminate these old sites, millions that you will never see later. It is serving the past, it is healing the things from yesterday, and so we joined our politicians to see that this is done and this is necessary. IBA was, and you offered to go on your bicycle, because bicycle is something that you are quick enough to see several sites and slow enough to experience the urban condition. And IBA was an invitation to the art and to the artists to be as relevant as the engineers or the politicians or the architects. So we invited these groups in the same level, on the same scale. And IBA at the end was a challenge for public administrations. I mentioned before how difficult it is to tell a mayor that it's good if things are done different. But it's much more difficult to ask a member of a staff to do things different. Because if your boss has always said that's the way, how can you say, I'm doing it different? No, so hierarchy in administration is a break. It is very slowing innovative processes. So going through is a challenge for those members of the administration. You see here forest officer. He is the director of a forest district in the Ruhr, and he's responsible for spontaneous woodlands on former industrial sites. He is very beloved by a lot of people and all the kids who are learning about nature in the city. From his perspective of his colleagues, of other forest district directors, he is a nothing. He is not producing wood, he is producing knowledge. But they are all we are relevant in the amount of wood that we are producing. So he had to make a decision for his career that telling people about spontaneous nature in the urban woodlands is relevant as producing wood. And the IBA was a selection of really unique projects, and it was mentioned we visited Mont-Cenis, an academy for the state, and so I could go through more than 100 single projects that have been made during the International Building Exhibition during this 10 years. IBA was experiencing this for 10 years. Training. It was not a training camp, it was a training period under real conditions in your city, in your administration, in your offices, etc. So it was really a networking, and we had 600 members of the city's administration who joined the project, who made these projects happen. So that was a great school under real conditions. That is the back page of the book. It is more than 100 single projects in 17 cities. Each project is unique due to the fact that we've made competitions for them, and together it's a new network of the future. The front page of this book of Karl Ganser is completely different. It is love at the second sight. And Karl Ganser tried to summarize that he's seen the Ruhr, the industrial region, as a person. As a person, as a personality, you can be ill, you can have problems, you can have faculties, possibilities, etc. But you can show up and you can change. So the Ruhr is not a common beauty. We are not a cover girl. We're not that selling thing. But we may be a personality, and if we're doing careful, we can discover this. So love at the second time is, the second side, I think, is a wonderful picture for that. We're here now in a center of art, so I selected one project to tell you more about. And this is the Hall of the Century. This is a steel factory site from the middle of the 19th century. So 1840, this was started to be a field of steel production. And as you can see, it is the city center, is the circle, and it was directly out of the walls, just outside of the city. Today, all these huge sites are in the cities. Very banal, but if they get free of production, it's a huge and unique potential for new urbanism, and in this case, it's located in Bochum. You can see these former industrial steel sites, and this is the Hall of Century, how it looks like today. It's called Hall of the Century because it really is 100 years old, and it has been a turbine hall, a gas turbine hall for the steel factory. And what you can see on the outside, 1902, is that this building has firstly been erected in Düsseldorf, which is 50 kilometers away. It had been an exhibition hall, and it's the first building that has been created to be de-assembled, transported, and be re-erected there. And that is the reason why it is a protected monument, because it's the first industrial building ready to be taken to pieces and to be re-shown again. That's the situation in 1997. A brilliant light experience, a great empty hall, 3 halls in a row, and we thought, what a great place, what an inspiring place. And it was very clear that we do not want to change the atmosphere. We want to keep the atmosphere by using it. So if you look from the outside, it was not a strong building. It was just a technical building. It has always been only a technical building. And in 2000 we had several programs where we said, it's so lovely, we should have art, we should have concerts, we should have things. And what you can see here, it has a lovely atmosphere, but an awful acoustics. It was not very good for music. It was not very good to sit on because it was windy. It was not very good because it was cold, so people were freezing. They said, it looks lovely, but... So you could make wonderful posters. But if you ask people, how did you like the concert? They said, So that was a very, very important experience because we said, it's the right hall, but not the right techniques for the art. So we made a competition, and Petzinka Pink Architects from Düsseldorf won this competition, and they said, let's change that to be a construction hall for the arts, and let's use curtains to separate several of these big, huge areas, so we can produce different pieces of art, different performances at the same time, because the idea was, let's have a festival, the Ruhr Triennale, let's have a festival of fine arts that is playing only and performing only in these buildings. That was 2002, and this 2002 was showing up the erection of that hall, and in 2003 it was ready. Following the architect's idea, things were put in front of the old building that are necessary, like garderobe, like service things, acacia, etc. And to keep the historic building behind. So in the night you can see the historic building through the glass, things, etc. The construction of the hall meant heating, meant a new floor, meant a new construction, and using the old technical things for the technical productions. So now it is the acoustics of a concert hall, and now great orchestras and artists and regisseurs are performing there. And as you can see with this concept of curtains, things can be divided, can be served, and it was started in 2003 with Fluta Magica, the magic flute of Mozart, and Gérard Montier was the first art director for the first 3 years. And Gérard Montier before was the director of the Salzburg Festival, and he became the director of the Paris Opera Houses afterwards, after he'd done the first Triennale. So you just get some impressions what can be done. We have 1,400 seats, yeah, for an orchestra, things, etc. And you see these things on the top that are making the acoustics working. We had great performances, and the invitation to the art directors is, make a piece of art that corresponds to the building. So this is The Soldier, an opera of the late 1960s, which is produced, and the tribune is driving. The people are sitting on a driving car where they are following the long stage. The stage was over the whole whole hall, and the people were driving along this van. We had different pieces of art since then, and we're continuing with this Triennale every year. I've shown you the first aerial photography, and this tells you it's located in a park. We have used and qualified the surrounding of this building as well, and so the people are using this not only in the evening and not only for fine arts, they're also using it for different purposes, like this is a meeting for bicycle friends promoting bicycle driving in the cities. We have invited several architects, landscape architects and bridge builders and bridge designers to create an infrastructure through this park. And so you can see that this Jahrhunderthalle, this hall of the century, is surrounded by a well-designed and well-maintained public park. So sites that have been closed, have been only industry sites, now a public park close to the center of Bochum, and even marriage photos are now taken with a great experience by the couples on there. We also kept the industrial heritage buildings on the site, and we're using them by night to be light sculptures and have great potentials even for romantic moments in the park. This park, this single park, this West Park, is part of the Amscher Landscape Park at all. And what you can see here with that cake is transformation, needs transformation in very, very different fields at the same time. We have to qualify the education, we have to qualify the building conditions, we have to qualify the water conditions, we have to qualify the science and knowledge, we have to develop green capital, we have to be attractive in a different way. So this also includes the experience that each of this cake, each of these pieces are different disciplines, different people with different interactions. So this picture tells you, we think about Metropole Ruhr as a goal, as a strategy to develop, and we ask each of these slides to follow in a kind of qualifying direction. The Amscher Landscape Park, as a part of the International Building Amscher Park, is a regional park in between the cities in the dense center. It is a joint project today of 20 cities, and what you can see here are the borders of the cities. They are laying in the landscape. From each city, it's the edge. From the whole region, it is in between. So working together meant to come over these borders. And I'm clicking backwards and forwards because we never discussed formal questions about borders. We always discussed where we were going to. What is the quality that we want to get? And that's the Amscher Landscape Park as a whole. A park with several single projects, including the West Park, including the whole of the century, and with an own infrastructure that connects these single projects for the people. And it also includes a vision of a new Amscher Valley, of a project and quality development in a very integrated understanding. The highlight, the flagship project number one was the Landscape Park Duisburg Nord. Peter Lutz, an architect from Munich, was winning this first competition, and we got that opening the blast furnace to be a public park and leave the blast furnace as it is. Make it accessible, make it attractive by using it for cultural affairs, for a lot of things, and offering infrastructure. So it's a climbing park now. You can test your climbing possibilities on these former storage walls of concrete that are more than 100 years old. And at night, it's a lit up park, it's an event to join. A second example is Dani Karavan. He is an artist from France and Israel, and he put an inner park in the inner harbor. It's called the Park of Remembrance, and he skeletoned the harbor buildings, and he left the concrete structures over to say here was something, and offered this to be a part of the public park. And I can tell you, people immediately using these infrastructure as theirs, as their local neighborhood city park. We're converting other steel sites like the Rhine Park with bigger attitudes, with bigger design. And again, we're offering daily qualities for the people from the neighborhood. So design and the needs of the people is combined. It's not an opposite, it's something to serve each other. I'm showing you a last project which summarized that very well. On the left side, you see the area in Dortmund, Phoenix, which has been a blast furnace, melting with ovens, melting the raw iron. And on the right side, we had the steel factory where the steel was produced. And what you see in the center is the location Hörde, is the neighborhood where the where the steel workers, whether was left or right, going to work. Both were closed. The blast furnace was closed and the steel factory was closed. So this was really a neighborhood of depression. For more 100 years, they worked, whether there or there, in steel. And then both disappeared. So I'm only showing you now the 90s, that is end of 1990s. The Phoenix steel factory is just closed. By the way, a lot of these materials there have been bought by China. A lot of Chinese came over, deconstructing these things, putting them in containers, shipping them to China, and re-erecting them there. So this is 2001. You see that the buildings have been demolished. You see that we had a lot to do. We had a ballet of big machines to work on that, and in 2010 we could let the water in. The plan to put water in was a plan from the local planning authority. It was not a big landscape architect or something. It was really a colleague that said, why not? It's from the topographic, it could be a lake, etc. So let's create a lake. And let's use it for new housing, for new jobs along the lake. 2015, you can see that that works. Investors have created the higher houses, and the Dortmund people are running around this lake every day, every weekend, and saying, oh, we have a lake, we have a lake. And the other cities say, oh, the Dortmund people are crazy. They run around their lake and say, oh, we have a lake. But if they have once been there, they say, with respect, oh, it works. Quite good. It works, by the way, because of public infrastructure. The private grounds is not going to the lake. The private piece of land is beyond a soccer tour, a soccer pedestrian round, and a soccer bicycle round. So people feel quite well, even if they're not living there. So these immigrants are not owners of one of these houses, but it's a public quality of this place that supports Schwarze today. And the river, by the way, is redeveloped. Private business people could buy their land to get their office there, and that shows you the result. A piece of land that has been in the ownership of one company is changed to be a piece of land in the ownership of hundreds of single individuals. It cost 180 million to make the physical repair. And the income of selling these little pieces of land was much higher. Which means the city of Dortmund got that for nothing. Yeah, the investment in the cleaning, the caterpillars, etc., was coming back by just selling the little pieces of land to several hundred of people, which is very important for the mayor, because when he started saying, I want to have a lake, everybody said, he is cuckoo. You should not vote for him, he is crazy. But now everybody says, yeah, it works, it counts even, so it's so. So that may be giving you an idea why we're promoting the Ruhr with here anything is possible, even turning a steel plant into a lake. What are we doing with Amstel Landscape Park beside these single or bigger projects? We're connecting the things by reusing our former freight train network. From Rail to Trail is a program in the Ruhr along the cities, and people are using it and loving that. Sometimes we're doing it very, very simple. Putting materials between the two tracks offers you a new pedestrian road. If you maintain it a little, it works quite well. Sometimes we have found great relicts. This has not been used for 40 years. It costs too much to pull it down, so we could discover, oh, it exists, and it's a wonderful bicycle road now. These bridges hold for hundreds of years. You just have to take the rust off, put no paint on, and you can offer these very well. Wherever these links are missing, we're creating new bridges. And we're very dogmatic. We want to have the best design. We do not want to have 100 best bridges. We want to have 100 different best bridges. And therefore, these competitions for our bridges are so important. Sometimes we're making crazy things, and I mentioned that yesterday, that an artist, Tobias Rehberger, asked for a slinky spring, this spiral that we have as play things, and that's the result. It was the cooperation between a bridge builder and the artist brought out this spiral thing, this slinky spring of fame over the Rhine-Herne Canal, and that's how it works finishing. It is not necessary to make things like that, but it's beautiful. And we were so dogmatic with the design of bridges because people understanding that directly. They experience that something special is offered to them, just for going over a canal, very banal. It's just a pedestrian connection, but it's a pedestrian connection with a very fine design. So people understand that things are better on a higher level. and you don't have to put a plaque and give information about that. We are offering park infrastructure in the sense of daily life. So a sports place, etc., is included in this co-park. We are offering even stages. An amphitheater at the Rhine-Herne Canal, it is Nordstern, where we have been on the visit, the second project that we visited. On Friday evening, you can go tango dancing on the Rhine-Herne Ship Canal. If you would ask people 30 years ago, let's go tango dancing on Rhine-Herne Ship Canal, they would say, you're completely crazy, what an ugly sight to go there. And now it's converted with a nice landscape architecture, with an infrastructure, with a new bridge, and being accessible, being reachable, and being attractive. We've discovered that the spontaneous vegetation, the spontaneous nature, what we call industrial nature, is of quite a beauty. And it's also relevant for the species, it's relevant for the ecology in the city, etc. So we said relevant pieces of our Amstel Landscape Park projects are made by industrial nature, and we do not have to invite a gardener. We do not have to invite a landscape architect to change that if we have things so impressive. And this also includes our mining spoil heats, where most of these sites are very, very well developed by nature itself. I'm coming back to the arts. We invited Richard Serra to work on this hill. And when Richard Serra came there and said, I don't want to have it covered green, which was our tradition. We wanted to hide these black mountains by greening them. And Richard Serra asked, no, let's keep the surface black. It's so big, and it has a curve on the surface that if you enter at the edge, you cannot see the horizon. You see a black something. And he erected one of his steel plates. It's called Plate for the Ruhr, and steel plate for the people of the Ruhr region. And it's on top, and it's a great experience to see this 14 steel sculpture from American artists in the Ruhr. And even if you have graffiti on that, you can't stop graffitis, but you can live with them, and it's quite a great thing. Another example of landmarking of these hills is the tetrahedron. And this tetrahedron is a sculpture on top of a hill. What a stupid thing. You're already on top of something, so why erect something on that? And the idea is, we offer again something special, and it's called Emscher Blick, view to the Emscher Valley, view to the Emscher Landscape Park. And it brings people up to look on their neighborhood, and it works great. And at night, you can climb up, and at night it is a sculpture. And Jürgen Littfischer is the artist, and we had a competition how to lighting the tetrahedron at night. And this is called Fraktal, because he only joined some of these steel beams, and they do not shape a triangle. So if you drive around the city and you look on that at night, you have several different geographic constellations, but never a triangle. So Fraktal is really the description of this piece of art. And at night, it is not laying on the hill. At night, you see the hill as a black something, but it is flowing over. Yeah? You see the Fraktal flowing like a star over this hill. We have a series of these kinds of landmarks made, and we're continuing to mark these landscapes with spontaneous sculptures like that. And we're also reusing the water towers and the infrastructure of industries of yesterday to make these things happen. So, if you want, we can even move mountains. Is the promotion speak for the city of the cities. I mentioned Emscher River, and I mentioned the bad conditions of water, and again, it's one piece of the whole cake, and that's yesterday and that's tomorrow. We have misused the whole river system to be an open sewer canal. We've done that because of coal industry, we have done that because of mining, we've done that due to a lot of reasons, but at the end we misused this river system, and we decided in the 1980s to stop that, to convert the river back to be a livable river system. I'm sorry, but that is still the situation today. This is in Nordstern, that's where we stopped last May, and that shows you that you can still look into a stinky toilet water river. It is wastewater of millions of people, it is wastewater of the industry, etc. And we have to convert this back to be a river. You see that this river is placed between dikes. This is necessary because this is higher than the surrounding cities. We have made mining in the surrounding, and the surface of this area has been sinking up to 25 meters. The surface has been sinking 25 meters, and this means the water regime is totally destroyed. It will be a lake, it will be a bassin if we do not pump out the water. So we have to carry the river over these holes. So therefore it's between dikes. And this means that outside of these dikes we have barbed wire. Very, very bloody thing. Barbed wire against your people to access the river. It doesn't work. So we have not only a technical thing, dikes, but we have to separate people in getting into this wastewater. Is an environmental crime and at the same time a social crime, because it keeps people away from their waters. So International Building Exhibition, Emscher Park, was a great provocation. And politicians at the beginning, in the end of 1980s, were discussing, why do you want to name it Emscher? We all know what a crime this is. That's the most hidden thing. Yeah? You could ask people in the Ruhr, do you know the conditions of Emscher? No, what is that? Then you started to no, this is not Germany. No, this is third world. Yeah? No, we don't have things like that. We're saying, yes, you have things like this. This hidden river is under this condition. So to put International Building Exhibition Emscher in the top line and park was really opposite. So Karl Ganser was very creative in putting the provocation into the headline of the name. And he said, if we do not name the thing that we have to change, we will lose. And he was very right with that. So the Emscher renovation is on its going. That's the way how the little tributaries or the little things are transported, and that's the whole thing together. All rivers that support the main system have to be converted. All little creeks have to be converted, and at the end, the main river Emscher itself as well. It's 4.5 billion euro to be invested to make this happen. So that's really a physical thing to be done. And that's, in principle, what we're doing. We're separating the wastewater from the rainwater. We're putting the wastewater in canals, what our former engineers did not do. They shared money for different purposes. And then we have a left river, which is rainwater, natural water, and we convert then this thing. So whenever you see some of these creeks, beside that there are big tubes lying underneath collecting the wastewater, and the river itself are converted. The edges of the river, the banks of the river are accessible. Our kids now are not separated by barbed wire and experience water in the city. This is very banal. So we're repairing our past. But in the region now, we think, oh, we've done it. It's quite good. So coming back to Phoenix, that's the way how the Emscher River now is coming into the Phoenix River. That is the way how it is coming out. So you see it's a normal urban water. It's smaller because not so much money, it's not so much water in it, so it's reduced in the scale, and it's attractive urban landscape now. And we're using this now in combination, complete with different attitude with using the water in the city. So we reinvent everything, even our rivers is the phrase that we're going out. So I'm coming back to what is important in the sense of change. The experience Ruhr is a reason to come to the Ruhr. Here, for example, it's the mayors of Ile-de-France, Paris Métropole, who came there to study our behavior with single projects. And we have a lot of Chinese delegations, even from the north of China where these coal mining cities are. We had commissions already here who are working on the nature-based and resource-based cities, studying all the details of conversion in very details. At the very beginning, these excursion people did not know so much about the Ruhr. Now it's completely different. They are studying all the details before they come, and they have really complicated questions if we meet them today. And looking about integrated solutions. This is a coal mine changed to be a desktop building. It's only writing tables left, and the whole building is converted to be there. It's not only experts, it's mainly normal tourism that happens with the Ruhr now, and we have doubled the overnight stays here up to 8 million up till today. Here you can see the figures of Zollverein again, 1.5 million people coming to see Zollverein, and more than 7 million people traveling on the route of industrial heritage. The route of industrial heritage starts and has a center at Zollverein, and it's something to tell the people, to show the people, to experience the people the relevance of the heritage. And Rem Koolhaas was the architect who converted this building into a Ruhr museum, and a lot of orange is used in this building. That may be the reason, because he's a Dutch architect and he loves that orange color. We love this thing as well. And he's transporting the people like the coal was transported before in this coal washing machine. It transports the people to the very top, and you go through these exhibition rooms and you leave out at the end. And again, his stair house installed in a former concrete hall, again with lights and orange, but a very impressive thing. So again, like our bridges, if people go in the Ruhr Museum, they have a new interaction with this historic building. And a lot of explanation. So he installed the pieces of exhibition into the machine and between. And well, we have bookshops now which are full with books about the Ruhr. Again, something which we didn't expect before. Zollverein is also a location for daily experience, like an ice rink, a 1 kilometer long ice rink in front of a row of 300 ovens, cookery ovens, former cookery ovens, that you can experience here. If you look on Ruhr Tourism, which is our tourism agency, and you look why and how do I promote, then it is the industrial heritage as a unique selling proposition. It is pieces of art of one of our coal mines. It is the transformation of Nordstern, again, with a piece of art as Hercules placed on this building. It is this interaction of light and industrial infrastructure. It is the Jahrhunderthalle Hall of the Century as a performing art room. It is these big events like Extra Shift. We have a night of all the industrial in the last, once in the year. And we have even new sport offers and these things. And definitely restaurants where you can have a nice evening. And you can cycle, you can visit these halls, and you can come to the Ruhr. If you look about our figures, you see that Zollverein is important, and that the industrial heritage trade at all is also important. And very important thing is that's our people who are traveling on that route. All school classes are joining now the route of industrial heritage. All people are traveling on parts of this route, and so we're studying our own roots. We're traveling our own identity, and instead of throwing it away. The trail includes 400 kilometer round course. You can travel through the Ruhr. You have important elements that are connected here. You are 25 anchor points where you can go, where you get information, where you get service, etc. of relevant single buildings. We have 3 visitor centers where we get information, daily information, program information, etc. to the users. We have the European route. ERI is the European route of industrial heritage, and 4 of our projects are on the European level connected. We have 13 housing areas integrated in this route of industrial heritage in the sense of declaring the neighborhood living conditions, and we have 17 panorama viewpoints that are connected into this touristic. I show you these elements in the sense of it's a professional touristic network, and you can study, you can use it without being an expert. You can just join in and see a part or come back and see other things. So the Route of Industrial Heritage has an annual passbook, an annual program book. It's bilingual, by the way, it's English and German, so you can travel on that. You get a whole media system, you get maps, etc., and you get the Route of Industrial Heritage site in the internet. Traveling without information includes this marking. This is a typical European thing. We have these brown cultural tables along the highways. And when we started with the Emscher Landscape Park, we went to the highway administration and asked them, why don't we have any of these brown cultural signs? And they told us, you have no culture. We said, sorry, what was the answer? And they said, you have no culture. No big cathedral, no big castle, no big, etc. And so we said, oh, what a chance. There are no competing other things. So industry, cultural, landscape is this wording on top. And that's now the amount of signatures along our highways. So if you drive through the Ruhr on the highways now, you definitely see these brown fields. If you leave the highway, then you can follow the route of industrial heritage just by following this round, and then you come to the end. And again, we're promoting this in Europe as well. I'm coming to the end. I'm nearly out. Not yet. 5 minutes, okay? What is our current perspective? We're thinking of how can we integrate this experience for the ongoing. I'm not here because of looking backwards. I'm here because we're going on. And what we're going on is that we think green infrastructure could be an understanding, a strategic understanding how we can continue to develop on all levels, in all cities, and again, as a platform for corporations. We have 5 operative levels where we think cooperation is possible, and cooperation includes on each of these levels different groups, different administrative and different knowledge and professional things. This is the urban landscape, and we think that the continuing of the regional park is a strategic relevant thing. Yeah? What is the nuances, the new qualities, the new offers of the Emscher landscape tomorrow? And we think that it's right to concentrate on the center of the agglomeration, which means we say no to more priorities at the edge. We think that the edge is in a wonderful, lovely, or not so wonderful, but an acceptable landscape condition, but we have to continue in qualifying the urban landscape. The second thing is we've started with that Emscher River. We have just repaired it. It will be ready in 2022. So in 2022, all the rivers are converted. But then we have a standard normal thing, and we're thinking about what is the role of water in the city tomorrow. The third is that it's not so much concentrated, more single project is that we follow a kind of green urbanism. Asking every architect, what can you do for climate change? What can you do for better living conditions, for flowers on your roof, for green roofs, etc. And so integrated solutions on a single piece could be subscribed as green urbanism. We think that our mobility things have to be changed dramatically. Big change in the way how we commute, how we drive, how we use cars, how we use buses, etc. So this is something ahead. So we call that climate neutral mobility. We don't have solutions. We have a need to go. And we think that a professional development of regional and local networks of bikeways for daily use, not for the weekend, not for having a tour, but from house to house, from house to business, from business back to house, etc., is a strategic challenge. And the last is we have to have new answers for climate protection and energy efficiency. We cannot say this is a problem for the state level, etc. It is a problem, it is a task for a daily urban development. And for the future, we've been selected to be a place to create an international garden exhibition Ruhr in 2027. So it's 8 years ahead that we are opening a garden show. And this has 3 levels: my garden, our garden, and Future Garden, and we're just starting to prepare the competitions to get the best solutions for that. Lessons learned, coming to the end. We have technically learned it takes up to 15 to 30 years to bring a site back to the economy, back to the city, back to livable life. And we have all promises it's getting quicker. I don't believe them anymore. I don't want to tell anybody to be a liar, but just being experienced, it takes 15 to 30 years, which means several election campaigns, several different mayors, which means continuity. And this again needs that your structure, your mental structure, has to be robust or resilient, if it's more flexible, to continue with this plan, not stopping with every changing of the mayor then it doesn't work. So it takes 15 to 30 years, and the second lesson is we need tailor-made solutions on each of these sites. We have no standard solutions. And we cannot even say, oh, we do it at the same way as Bochum or as SMO. Each needs, like health, personal health. If you come to the doctor, you wouldn't like, yeah, I just gave you the same medicine like the one who'd been here before you. No, we need individual solution, tailor-made. We've also learned that public sector has to go first. We had that dream, and our politicians had that dream, oh, there will be better investors, and they will make it. They will bring the money, they will bring innovation, etc. But none investor came on brownfields. It is, from the economic point of view, not sensible to spend private money in repairing the worst thing of the former owner. So they come if the conditions are ready for private industries. So we have to renovate things, we have to start to react sites with the public initiatives. And we don't have to do all, but if the starting conditions are great again, then private industry are coming by themselves. The necessity for that is that we have to have public instruments. I mentioned strategies, but making it happen means you need strategies and instruments, and you need budgets for these instruments to, for example, to clean a series of sites, etc. And funding is necessary. So the last thing is funding for things like that is more than a local budget exists. So the local budgets of the towns are too small to solve problems like that, which means the state has to, I don't know about the financial conditions of your town, sorry, but in our case, the local budgets are too small to do things like that. So the repair should not compete with the daily needs of your social things, with your education things, etc. But the repair has to be done. So state funding was in our case, and state funding is still needed to do things like that. Coming to the end, very important is to do things like this public. This is a great, it's a very banal event, but great in the sense of amount of people. It is a race with self-constructed little cars where the people came up to one of our coal mines joining that. And you see what I mean by self-constructed. So the people were invited to be very creative in what kind of self-made car are you rolling down this hill. And it's Red Bull who financed the event, and we gave the hill for that because we thought, what a good idea, just for nothing. It's not a great cultural effect, but what you also see is that our people have humor, and it's not the decline, it's the change of the Ruhr that is going on. Thank you very much for your attention.
谢谢感谢李吉教授。